Good afternoon, CRRA. Hello, hello, hello. You've all made it. We've all made it to this point. Some of us made it with our voices, and some of us
don't make me talk.
did not. How many of you have lost your voice? This one. How many of you have nothing left to say because you've left it all out there in your panels, in your sessions? I want to take this opportunity to speak just as a CRRA member and been in so many wonderful panels. I watched my staff give wonderful presentations, and I was reminded, as if I need to be, of the extraordinary challenges that they and me are facing. And I come this morning with an overwhelming sense of gratitude to all of you for helping me and my staff and my program. This conference is so special. We always say it again and again and again, and we thank our sponsors, and we thank staff, and we thank ourselves. But it's a member-driven organization, and you all bring the content, whether you present it or not. And as a member, I really want to, as a co-member, I want to thank you so much. We're so happy to welcome to the stage another member. You know her, you love her. She is the winner of the CRRA Service Award, Shauna McCracken-Levy.
Well, how's everybody doing? We had too much fun last night, didn't we? Oh my. Well, you guys are in for a real treat today. You're going to hear from Daniel Silverstein, also known as Zero Waste Daniel. Daniel is a fashion designer, entrepreneur, and sustainable fashion leader. He studied fashion design at the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York and the Politecnico di Milano in Milan, Italy, where he also learned Italian. And Daniel competed on the NBC show Fashion Star in 2013, which you may have seen. The show gave Daniel enough exposure that soon celebrities including Jennifer Hudson, Kristen Bell, and Amber Valletta were wearing his couture zero waste designs on magazine covers and at red carpet events. Daniel has been featured in such magazines as Vogue, InStyle, and Inc., to name just a few. Daniel's also been featured on the sustainable lifestyle website Magnifico because I had the pleasure as a contributor on Magnifico to interview Daniel in November of 2016 on that fateful election day. And anyway, that was probably the only good thing that happened that day. Anyway, it's my pleasure to introduce Daniel to you and to let him tell the rest of his story. Daniel?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Talking to Shauna really was the best part of that day. And thank you, everyone, for coming and being here. Thank you, CRRA, CRRA.com, for hosting me and giving me the opportunity to talk about this. So I guess without further ado, I'm Daniel, or better known as Zero Waste Daniel. So this is my very official I'm Zero Waste Daniel look. Some people also know me as that guy in Brooklyn who makes clothes out of scraps or out of leftover materials or old clothes. Some people aren't really sure what I make them out of, but they're like, there's that guy, and he does that Bowie shirt, and, it's made out of scrap material. There was a Facebook video about it. You know what I'm talking about, right? There's a Bowie one. It's made out of trash. And of course, we're all like, it's not trash. So anyway, I'm that guy. Zero Waste Daniel. My best friend's mom calls me Daniel Zero Waste. Some people call me David, but I'm Daniel. And I'm wearing that shirt just to prove it. So regardless of what you call me, I'm actually Daniel, and I'm originally from Pennsylvania. So I grew up not too far from Amish country, and as the queer younger brother to a girl, I had pretty easy access to some Barbies, and living near Amish country, I don't know if you could tell from these guys' outfits, but the teachers made what they're wearing. So living not too far from Amish country, I had pretty easy access to some fabric scraps as well. And thus, my fashion career was born. So by the age of 12, I was a custom clothier working out of my bedroom. I'm glad you guys like that. I got a lot more. So after starting to make clothes in my bedroom, I began making clothes for humans with my unsolicited designs for the neighborhood girls' prom dresses, and became the Gianni Versace of Madison, New Jersey. And I got my first paying job as the costume designer of my 8th grade musical with my unsolicited sketches for costumes. And off I went. Seemingly destined for a career in fashion, I went to FIT and I hit the rough pavements of New York in 2006. And within 6 months of graduating with a 4.0, I was practically what you would call fashion roadkill. I took my portfolio and my signed letter of recommendation from fashion royalty, icon of design, pride of Venezuela, the one and only. Yes, there is a Warhol of her face in her office. She is the owner of the white shirt. Carolina Herrera signed her name. You should hire Daniel Silverstein. And I took that signed letter of recommendation, and I took my portfolio, and I took them straight to the bottom of the industry. This is the one and only photo you will ever find of my 3-month stint as an associate temporary designer at Victoria's Secret, working for their now, may it rest in peace, mail order catalog. Their lack of appreciation for my rural, crafty roots was the kind of stuff that you end up hearing about in knitting circles back in your hometown after you've changed careers for the 3rd time. So needless to say, I didn't last long before I began Daniel Silverstein, the brand that I hoped 21-year-old me was going to change the industry with, and thus, zero waste would become a part of fashion for real. For 5 years, I experimented. Oh, that wasn't supposed to happen. So, got a lot of photos. We're going to go back. Well, I'll talk about it anyway. For 5 years, I experimented with different design techniques. So, we have all different kinds of things happening where I tried to use all of the materials that were being cut as part of my designs and putting them back on the pieces. And I tried everything. I wanted to be the most sustainable designer possible. I used organic cotton. I was a vegetarian for 3 years. I made an entire collection using only rectangles so that nothing would get cut off. You name it, I probably have a photo of it in a filing cabinet somewhere, and because those are obsolete now because of like the cloud, that filing cabinet is now on its side in my living room being used as a coffee table because I won't throw it out. But anyway, I digress. So here I am floating somewhere between 27 and 21 being like, I'm gonna be the most amazing designer, like one of those Instagram polls with its tongue hanging out, like, how happy am I? Am I here, am I here, am I here? And I was all the way at the bottom, like rock bottom. I mean, if you look at me and listen to what Shauna said, So I have dressed an Academy Award-winning actress. I've gotten you can kind of see Amber Valletta on the side there, wearing one of my pieces on the cover of the Sunday Times Style in the UK. I had won a car on an NBC reality show. Like, I was really killing it. I guess you guys probably think it looks really good because you're all waste managers. But if you work in fashion, you would know I was literally nowhere. That all added up to absolutely nothing. See, in this industry, you have to have stuff on red carpets every single night. You need to be at every major event. You need to have your pieces on every red carpet. And all of what I had done had added up to a couple of photographs. So I decided that I would have a second career change. First, I was a mass market designer. Then I was an independent designer. And now if I change careers one more time, I can move back home with my parents and start knitting. So I did what any 20-something millennial would do who had no job but a real giggable trade. And I went on Craigslist and started looking for a job. So there it was in black and white right in front of me. My best offer: teach a class. So faced with the reality that I was about to contribute to the statistic of those who can't do teach, I did what any 20-something-year-old millennial would do who had a real giggable trade, no job, no savings, no security, but had a pile of leftovers from a failed business venture and knew how to sew. And I took an afternoon off and I made myself a shirt. And then I did what any 20-something millennial would do, regardless of what's going on in their life. And I took a photo of it, and I put it on Instagram. And thus, Zero Waste Daniel was born. So that's kind of how that happened. Now, the big question is, what's the difference between Daniel Silverstein, not mass market designer, failed independent designer, sitting in a room with a pile of trash that he turned into a shirt, and Zero Waste Daniel? And the answer is really simple. If you put an @ symbol in front of anything, you have a brand. So the @ symbol allowed me to get out of this problem that I created for myself. I had sort of backed myself into a corner with all of these materials, all of these obligations to be zero waste, all of this commitment that I wanted to be an independent designer, but I didn't know what to do. I didn't actually want to be a designer the way that Carolina Herrera was. What I actually wanted to do was work with these waste materials and create something just like I did when I was a kid. I've been working with scrap since I was like 5 years old. And when I got into the industry and I saw everyone throwing that stuff out, I was like, you guys are crazy. You're not actually solving a problem with design, you're creating one. So on paper, I knew my business was not going to cut it, but on Instagram, I had a brand. So these days, anything with an @ symbol in front of it is a brand. And what's so interesting about the @ symbol is that it's like a gender-free, non-binary, cis whatever, they, them, nosotros. Like, I went from Daniel, David, that guy, to I'm Zero Waste Daniel. Hello, I'm Zero Waste Daniel. Have you heard of Zero Waste Daniel? Have you been to Zero Waste Daniel? At Zero Waste Daniel, we don't do things like that. I mean, you can really take on, it rolls off the tongue. It is brandable. So it got pretty exciting pretty quickly, this idea that through the internet, I was able to reach people in a different way than my reality. So if we think about brands and branding and logos, they're literally everywhere. I mean, we're in a Marriott. So they tell you so many things about the people wearing them, the things that they're on, the products that carry those brand stamps. And I kind of want to break down what those mean before we get back to Zero Waste Daniel. So you look at this image, and it means something to everyone in here. It means, I like sports, or I did a sport once, like I was on Little League. Or these are limited edition, or it means just do it, you know? Like, this means something to everyone in here, and it means something different to all of us. This also means something, but it doesn't mean I like sports, it means I like yoga. Or maybe it means you know, I'm really working on an elimination diet and I'm healing my gut fauna. Or maybe it means, this top is cute on me, right? And my butt looks good. And then this logo means something too. It means, I'm going outside today. Are you coming? Because I don't care what the weather's like. But brands are ubiquitous. All of these guys are branded. We know what all of them do, and they don't have any logos on them. Can anybody tell me what the guy on the left does? Exactly. What about the guy next to him? And the next guy? And the last one? These brands are so ubiquitous that you guys literally know everything about them. You know their socioeconomic background, you know probably where they're from, you even know the one guy's English. So at some point, brands are so embedded into what we're doing, we don't even realize that we're messaging to each other constantly with them. And even though it might not have a Nike swoosh on it, it's a brand. It's actually a federal crime to impersonate some brands. Like being a police officer, you can't show up looking like a police officer unless you have the badge. You need a badge to be part of that brand. But we take the visual cues so seriously, nobody knows where those uniforms are made or who makes the police badges. We trust them on site only. That's why it's illegal to impersonate that brand. So brand names aside, we're saying things and messaging all the time. Look at Jennifer Garner carrying this brandless coffee cup. What could she maybe be saying with this? She could be saying a lot of different things. She could be saying, I'm thirsty. Or she might be saying, like the rest of America, I too am addicted to caffeine. Or she might be accidentally saying she doesn't care about the environment, she doesn't care about sea turtles, and she doesn't know what's going on. And let's give her the benefit of the doubt, okay? She probably had her assistant get that coffee. Obviously, she would have preferred a reusable, but she was really thirsty, so she took it. But someone snagged a photo of it, and now her messaging is open for interpretation to everyone who sees it. Disclaimer, I don't know Jennifer Garner, and I don't know what she was thinking when this photo was taken. But let's try this again and see if this art form of judging people based on their messaging is actually working. What do we think Melania Trump was saying when she said, I really don't care, do you? I mean, I'm assuming she puts her coats on one arm at a time like the rest of us, and she may have been thinking a multitude of different things when she put this on. She might have been thinking, I really don't care about these children, and I want everyone to know. She might have been thinking, I went to Zara. She might have been thinking, I didn't read the back of this before I put it on. And she also might have been thinking, I'm cold, so I'm gonna wear a jacket. There's so many options, but I don't think that most of us actually intend to offend people or seem like we don't buy into a conscious lifestyle or aren't aware of what's going on when we accidentally send these messages. There are so many actions that our apparel and the products and the brands that we carry around say they speak volumes around us. You never need to open your mouth for people to know things about you. And it happens all day long. So let's look at this symbol for a second. This is a brand, and this is a brand that is got some pretty mixed feelings about it. And the number one thing that I'm going to tell you guys, because you all care about this symbol and we all buy into this brand, is that this brand is not cool at all. It's got a stigma around it, and it's just as much stigma to some people as that disposable coffee cup has to you and me. So how are we going to, and why are we going to, stop introducing waste into brands? Where does waste get introduced into a product? How does it become a part of your brand, and how are we going to eliminate it? One of the things that I do with my brand, but also with my life, is I live low waste. So this is what I call my essentials pouch. I sell them on my website if you're lazy and you don't want to DIY, but I don't think you need to be a millionaire to live without waste. So I carry a couple of really basic things around with me every day. A tote bag, a reusable container like a mason jar. I bring a utensil, and I bring a napkin. And that way, when I'm out and I'm shopping and I'm like, I don't think I really have any groceries in my house, I know I have a tote bag with me, and I can go to the grocery store and I don't need a disposable bag. When I'm thirsty or I want coffee like Jennifer Garner, or I am finished with my lunch and I want to take my leftovers with me, I have a mason jar. When I want to get food on the go, or my friend offers me to taste some of their amazing homemade whatever, I have a fork and I can partake and I don't need a disposable. And when I spill something on myself, which is like every day, I have a napkin and I can clean it up. That's why I'm wearing black. I spilled something on myself on my way into this room. But waste can happen at all different points. So let's assume that as a consumer, I'm not prepared to be zero waste. As a brand, you have to be able to provide those wasteless options to your consumer. And I think that there are 5 levels where waste gets introduced into a product. And I'm going to talk you through what I think the 5 levels are and how I combated them with my company. The first one is setting up shop. So any new business is going to need all kinds of materials and supplies, whether it's merchant services. For me, I needed sewing machines, all this different stuff. But one of the best things we can do, and a lot of you guys do e-waste, and you know about some of the large-scale solid industrial waste, one of the best things we can be doing is reusing. So when I started my company, I found secondhand machines, and I started working with older material and upgrading it so that it could be kept out of landfills, given a second life, reused. Also, when I did have to purchase things that were new materials, I found secondary systems and streams so that I could take the leftover packaging, for example, styrofoam, and send it somewhere to be recycled instead of discarding it. At Zero Waste Annual, there is no waste bin, so that's not an option. The second place is sourcing, and this one is really, really important because you guys as waste managers know a lot of resources that are out there that people aren't taking advantage of. So when I started my company, instead of saying, okay, I'm going to be a fashion designer and I want to use material, I started looking for waste. What are people throwing out so that I have more available funds in my business to spend on fair labor instead of having to split the cost between materials and labor? I can spend all of it on labor and use free or low-cost waste to make my products. And this one is so important, so important, because as I'm getting that waste, I also want to make sure I'm not creating waste. So I found vendors who would let me bring my own reusable bags or take bags back from me, so as they're bringing in waste, I'm not creating a byproduct at the same time. The third one is marketing. I mean, at this point, it's 2018. Raise your hand if you don't have a smartphone. I think we can all trade business cards for Instagram. It's time. And you know what? If you're someone who doesn't want to get on social media, I bet your email goes to your phone. And if you meet someone and you want to stay connected, why don't you just say, hey, give me your email. I'm going to shoot you one. That way we're connected. We can eliminate tons of disposables immediately. I don't know about you guys, but I've given out a lot of business cards. And up until a couple of years ago when I stopped taking them, I took a lot of business cards. And you know what? I don't use business cards. So they end up in the recycling. And at this point, level 4, packaging. What is physically in between your customer and the product? Is it a bag? Is it a label? What's on the product, and what do they have to dispose of to get rid of it? Stickers, all this different stuff. So with my company, I don't know if you guys are aware, but almost every single product that goes to a boutique or a major department store, I don't care where you're buying it from, is shipped to them in a single-use plastic bag. And there is no infrastructure for recycling that stuff. So what I did was I said, you know what? I don't want to play. And I said, I'm not going to sell this stuff in stores. I'm only going to sell it direct to consumer, so I have complete control over how it gets from my shop to my customer. I use post-consumer recycled packaging that USPS provides, and other than that, we're good. And you know what? Added bonus, it helps me keep my cost of doing business down and my margins really high. So I am definitely happy with that choice. And then there's the secret level, level 5. And that's office culture, and you guys all know about that. So it doesn't really matter what your job is, there's always waste around the office. And I've just done little things at my shop in Brooklyn to make sure that we're reducing waste. Really, really simple. Keeping fruit so that there's easy snacks, or mixed nuts that I buy in bulk, or just having reusable cups. So if someone comes in and wants a glass of water, I don't have to give them a bottle or a disposable. And the last part is that I don't keep a waste bin in the shop, like I said, and that helps send a message to customers and team members that waste has no place here. So basically what I like to do is hack everything, and when I hear that there are rules, I'm like, cool, I got the rule, I'm gonna find a way around it. You know, just because there isn't an option that seems clear, the number one thing is that if you want to be zero waste, you can't wait for the solution, you have to want it. That want for waste reduction has to come from within. And so if someone says, here's your disposable bag, you say, okay. And then you go out and you find a reusable one and you bring it back and use it. Again, the waste issue is invisible. So this is a clear plastic bag, but all we see when we see this is a t-shirt. Why don't we see the bag? I think that this space is ripe for disruption. And I think the number one thing is that people are really quick to say it's not possible. But it is possible. The number of times that I've heard, you can't do that, is insane. But I'm definitely here, and I'm definitely doing it. So when I first started making zero waste annual products, people would tell me, no one will buy a shirt if they don't know exactly what it looks like, because each of my shirts is one of a kind and slightly different. And I said, yeah, you know, maybe it might be hard to convince someone to buy something that they can't see, unless you convince them that they should want to buy it, because the characteristics that you see as an obstacle to purchase, I see as something special that makes me want it even more. And yes, it is a lot of work to sew a couple of hundred small pieces of fabric together that someone else was going to throw out and turn them into a shirt and get it to a customer. But you know what else was a lot of work? Knocking off a Valentino sweater at Victoria's Secret prices. That was a lot of work. So I choose the option that I choose, and I put my 100 into it every single day. I'm either doing it or I'm not doing it, and at levels 1 through 4 and secret level 5, I am doing it. So, thank you. So rather than take up your time with statistics that you guys already know about waste, because you could probably tell me way more than I know, and scary stuff, that's not why you're here, I think we should get to the core of the problem, which is, what do we do now? We know this is a problem, but we have to fix it. So I ask myself two questions. What do I have, and what do I need? These are really important black and white areas. You have what you have, and you need what you need. I have design skills and an awareness of this issue. What I need are materials, because as long as I'm making products, I'm always going to need materials. And what I need is an audience of people who needs my goods. But I am not the person who should be sourcing the materials, and I am not the person who should be trying to get it in front of you. I'm the designer. So I better get my brand together. And if any of you guys know who Bethany Frankel is and the Skinny Girl Margarita, this is an example of a brand that is together. You can barely tell the difference between the brand logo and the girl. They are one thing. So how am I going to do the same thing? How am I going to turn myself into the Bethany Frankel of zero waste? How am I going to make zero waste Daniel something so ubiquitous, something so clear to people that anyone walking by, whether they see it on me, on you, on anyone else, they say, that's zero waste Daniel. You care about recycling. You're woke AF to trash. What are the three things that I need to know about myself to have my brand together? And it's really simple. One, it's a brand that needs to be zero waste on all 5 levels. If it's not touching every level, I'm not selling it in my store. And that needs to be a hard and fast rule. It doesn't mean that waste won't happen. It means I'm not sending it to landfill. The second is that it needs to be products that anyone can use. It's so important that we remove the personal opinion side of things from this area. I make sweatshirts, t-shirts, joggers, zip-up hoodies, really basic products that I don't care if it's not your style, don't tell me you can't use it. If you don't want to buy it because you don't like it, that's a personal choice, but anyone can wear a black sweatshirt. And the third thing is that it needs to be open for anyone. We need one-size-fits-all options. And I don't mean the size of your clothing. I mean something that you can actually partake in. So it's got to be reasonably affordable, and it needs to be inclusive, whether it's your background, your size, your gender, anything about you. If you want to do better, even if you just want to look cute, I want to give you an option that's actually going to help you do what you need to do when you're actually buying clothing, not be a part of the problem. Zero Waste Annuals got your back. So this then becomes a question of supply and demand. I have a product. I need supplies, and I need to create a demand. But if you remember back to when I was sitting in my store with my pile of scraps, sorry, not my store, my studio, with my pile of scraps, looking for a job and decided to make a shirt, there are a couple other paths I could have taken. So I could, as you know, I took the path of making myself a shirt, but what I could have done was take the path of turning it into materials. I could have closed down my studio and said, I have real resources that I could sell instead of throwing them away because I'm done. So I could have turned into a materials vendor. I could have sold my sewing machines, I could have sold my scraps, I could have sold all that stuff. I also could have gotten on the other side of it and started raising awareness, maybe saying, okay, I have machines and materials, what is out there in my community, who needs this? Who needs what I'm giving? And I could have become an activist for engaging a local community with waste materials. But instead, I made myself a shirt. So now that I've made this shirt, I need to make sure that I'm going to be able to get it to people. The thing is that in our world, and from the outside, the fashion industry has very little opportunity for breaking in, for doing better. The main motivation for most people in fashion is to sell you something new. Most industries just want to sell you another, but most trashy industries want to sell you something new. So they change trends, they make you feel bad about your body, they make you feel bad about your wardrobe, they make you feel like you're not keeping up with things so that you'll buy another. And I realized that my motivation for doing this was actually really different. I don't want to sell you anything. I want to make shirts. I like making products, and I feel passionate about using waste materials. There are people who feel passionate about collecting waste materials, but they don't want to make shirts. There are people who feel passionate about reaching out to their local communities and making them feel aware of the issues, but they don't want to collect materials and they don't want to make shirts. They just want to talk to the community. So it seems like it takes people going down all three of these paths, not just one of them. That's how I found FabScrap. FabScrap is a Brooklyn-based nonprofit. Yeah, FabScrap. It's a Brooklyn-based nonprofit run by my friend Jess and her new partner Camille, and what they do is they came from the waste management side of things, just like you guys. Saw a problem, saw a resource, and said, I bet I can find people who need what I've got. So they created a business where designers can do the right thing by, instead of sending things to landfill, sending things to FabScrap for a tax donation. And, a tax break. And what I then do is go to FabScrap, and I take their hardest to recycle materials, and I upcycle them into Zero Waste Annual. And then what you might not know is that when you're reading fashion magazines, every single page that you're reading is paid for. The editorial pages are shrinking and shrinking and shrinking every month because the print industry is really suffering. So instead of going to Vogue, who actually is selling you the idea of being in Vogue, then going on Instagram or Facebook or other social media platforms and buying ad space to sell you the ideas that they sold to other people, I mean, it's just like a buy-in to a buy-in. Instead of going to them, I did what any 20-something millennial would do, and I tried to get it on a more fun, more viral, more easy to consume, less salesy platform by engaging with social media platforms like Insider, and now this, and BuzzFeed, and saying, I'm doing something new, I'm doing it in a really different way, and who wants to represent it? Because they're not designing and they're not collecting waste, but they love disseminating information. That's what they're there for. So I'm curious, who in here represents a waste stream or a byproduct or something that needs to be recycled? Anyone? Yes, exactly. And who in here is a local blogger, an influencer? Maybe you have a store or you work as a government official or in municipality and you have access to people. I thought so. And is there anyone in here who has very specific skills or makes a product? Yes, I see you. Yeah. So I think what's really interesting is that in teams, it might be easier to make things look cool and get them out of the conference and into the hands of those people. But we have to actually figure out who has materials, who has skills and ideas, and who has an audience. By combining recycled materials with zero waste design and making these goods readily available to your tapped-in audiences, we can actually create a demand for this seemingly endless supply of offcuts, byproducts, and recycled materials. I'm already a designer, and I don't need to do another collab with another designer. We're all fighting for the same market space. What I need to do is figure out who has other resources that need to be turned into things, and who has other audiences that need information like the stuff that we know and that we have. What we have to do now is get out of the mindset that this is going to be slow or hard. It's up to us to make this happen and make it mainstream by supporting it and living it and designing waste out of the equation. So what I believe we need to do at this point is rebrand waste. We need to make it beautiful, make it something people want. I make mosaics out of the smallest pieces of fabric, and they're the most popular things that I do. People see no value in this material until we put it in front of them. But I think that we can put it in front of them and make it exciting and beautiful by doing the right thing, making it easier. So I think what we need to do is we need to arm people to be prepared to consume without waste. Remember, if every person had those essentials with them every day, we wouldn't need so many disposables. We wouldn't need all the plastic forks and even these compostable things that we know aren't really going to get composted. So after an incredible couple of days of meeting a lot of you guys and talking to you and hearing about the different issues that you're having and the different struggles and hurdles that there are to getting this out there, I truly believe that what we need to do is prepare people to live without waste. We need to make better products so that they can consume recycled materials and still look and feel cool. We've got to get rid of the stigma that goes with that recycling symbol. So most importantly, I think we need a clearer symbol and identifier, which is in some way what I'm trying to do with the Zero Waste Daniel patchwork. When you see it, you know what it is. It's a ubiquitous style. It's just a sweatshirt or a hoodie or a t-shirt, but it messages to you that you know something about that person. And so every product that we put out there, every message that we put out there, every time we reach out to people to try and encourage them to reduce their waste, it needs to be under the same umbrella. Otherwise, we're all just shouting at people and talking to each other and trying to do our best, but we already know. We need a beacon of light in the sky. And so I think it's really important for everyone to realize that the only reason I'm here today is because I saw a problem and I said, someone has to fix this, why not me? And I think this time next year, every single one of you who knows about those impossible problems could be back here with a prototype or a solution to share with the community that can bring it to their audience, to find out who has the resource for what you need to make it out of. I think that this is an incredible conference full of people who are incredibly aware of what's going on, but what we need to do is figure out which one of the lanes we each want to be in, and then don't talk to people in our lane, find partners in the other two. I really think it's possible, and I think that it's time. You guys are the people who are going to change this issue, but you need to look inside yourselves and figure out what makes you tick, what is the issue that you're willing to tackle, and why not you. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to help Laura out here because she did a good job of losing her voice last night. All right, so we're going to start the Q&A, and you guys have an opportunity to ask Daniel some questions. At the same time, we're going to continue this raffle, this is your last chance to get a ticket for the raffle.
There's some folks with pads back here, so just...
Despina and Lauren back there are selling tickets.
Yeah.
They're $10 each, and
We're
the
raffling
proceeds
off-
go...
They're a $10 donation, and just this is the textile that was created during the conference, made out of California, Bay Area-based scrap textiles. So this is locally designed, and I didn't point this out earlier, but it's ZW for zero waste, if that was not obvious. So,
And it's a one-of-a-kind.
one of a kind, a zero waste annual original. Okay, so let's turn it
Did
over.
we say that it benefits the Young Professionals
not.
Fund?
Yeah.
So that's a new fund for CRRA, and we really want to support it. So please.
Subsidy for young professionals and new to the
chance.
industry. So just as you fill those out, you can bring them up and drop them in, and we'll do the raffle at the end of the Q&A, and I'm on this side. Raise your hand if you have a question for Zero Waste Annual.
I'll take questions on this
Right here.
side.
Hi, wonderful presentation.
Thank
I
you.
have two questions. The first is, do you have photos of some of the garments that you've made that you
Yeah.
can share with us?
So the best thing to do is head to my website, which is zerowastedaniel.com. I feel like after the last 40 minutes, you can probably remember. Everything I do is a one-of-a-kind, but the size and fit of my pieces is standard. So yeah, you can snap a photo of that. That's my business card. And everything is unisex and genderless, and you'll see most of the pieces on me. The reason that I do that is because usually people who are shopping on my website have met me or know me, and so when you see it on me, you have an idea of scale of size.
And then my second question is, do you have a sense of your customer demographic? Is there a certain age range? Where do the people live, or where are they coming from?
Yes.
What are they like, the people who buy your things?
So again, going back to like having a brand with an @ symbol, Instagram provides a lot of customer demographics for me, Facebook the same. Also my website host, which is Squarespace, same deal. Pardon me. So predominantly, my demographic is about 80% female, and it's about 60% between 24 and 35. The main cities in the States are New York, LA, and I want to say San Francisco, or is in the top couple, Chicago also. And globally, New York, the UK, America, the UK, and Australia. Yeah,
Any
Australia
questions
has a
on this
lot of,
side? Oh, you've got...
awareness. Sorry.
Sorry, Laura, I'm not sure what you're telling me.
Okay. Hi.
Hey.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks. Oh, sorry. I guess I'll stand. Hi. Thanks for your amazing speech and for representing millennials. You slayed it.
Thank you. Yeah, we get a bad rep, but we're going to change the world. Captain Planet.
Yeah, and I just had a question for, so, I understand your whole branding, and people who obviously shop with you know what your brand represents, but do you provide customers with any educational tags or something on your clothes, or any little takeaways? Maybe not because you're zero waste, but anything that talks about what to do when they're done with the product, or anything encouraging them to continue using it once, so that they don't have it become waste.
Yeah, nothing so pointed as that comes with your purchase, but I do have a blog on my website where I have suggestions for how to recycle clothing, where to send fabric scraps if you're someone who is also a maker, where to buy offcuts and second-hand goods. I think it's really important to be providing resources to the people who are also purchasing the goods. Something that I don't really advertise as much, but I definitely do, is really solid customer service. So if you wear through one patch of your zero waste annual, we can replace it with a new patch. And I think that's part of the whole life cycle of the garment, is that the way we traditionally make clothing right now, it's very hard to repair, or often looks repaired. But with what I'm doing, you could be updating this forever and consuming a lot more slowly and responsibly and loving your pieces for a longer time.
Thank you. Any questions on this side? Okay, we got a few.
Hello. I am also an upcycle designer in Eugene, Oregon.
Yes.
And
What is it? What's your brand called? How do we find you?
it's called Envia, ENVIA, fashion.com.
Yeah, shameless plug.
We're a subset of St. Vincent de Paul Society of Lane County, so we're a brand of a nonprofit retail thrift organization. But what I battle often, and I'm wondering if you do too, and how you get around it, is first, this fast fashion phenomenon. When there's so much out there, people are looking for the latest thing. This concept of new having to be new design. What do you see as the path forward culturally? From consumers to pressure larger fashion industry to be more green and to accept this concept of upcycling as a viable new product?
Yeah. I think that's a really great question, and I'm not sure you're going to love my answer, but maybe you will. So without getting too far to the left, I genuinely believe that Star Wars will happen before the fashion industry fixes fast fashion. But I also believe that that system is so built to fail that it's going to crumble pretty quickly. I could see that happening as a student at FIT. There are not enough jobs, not enough resources, not enough consumers, and not enough interest in fashion to actually maintain the demand that fast fashion has created. So two things are going to happen. One, there's going to be this whole return to couture and luxury, which is how this art form of making clothing got started. You probably are aware. And people will go back to the handcraft of it, very much like the high-end designers that we all know and love, Dior, Balenciaga, the big names. And for people in the luxury space, that will be really good for their business. Those are heritage crafts that will last forever. Then there are people maybe a little more like me who are going to change it from a different perspective, which is that with the phenomenon of Project Runway and Fashion Star and everyone wanting to be a star designer, we've oversaturated the market, and fast fashion owns that space. So you want to be a star, there's no space, and there's too much clothing. How are we going to do this? Basically, the local and small businesses who are focused on recycled materials are the only ones that will survive the fashion apocalypse. So
I love your answer.
Oh,
I love your answer.
So basically, what I would suggest is to figure out how to get off the grid of needing to participate in the fashion industry so that as it burns, you can thrive.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Hi,
Hey, Jim,
Daniel.
what's up?
It was a joy to meet you the other day.
Thank you.
And I just want to, I'm a Silicon Valley entrepreneur, and I want to encourage your entrepreneurship. It is awesome, your entrepreneurial spirit. And a couple of questions.
Sure.
How did you come up with zero waste, Daniel? What a brand.
That is such a great question. I didn't have time to put it into my presentation, and I'm so glad I'm going to get to tell you. So when I started my brand originally, I started with a partner from design school, and I was just really upset about the waste issue. And I knew I wanted to do something about it. I knew I wanted to make a change with it. And I said, we need to be able to design this stuff without waste. We go to one of the top schools in the country, and I literally had a professor say, you can't do this. And I was like, oh, you can't do this. So after hours, while I was working at Victoria's Secret, I started messing around with my own zero waste patterns with a friend of mine. She had a dress form, I had a sewing machine, poof, we made some dresses. And I wanted to follow in the footsteps of these high-end designers, so I created a brand that we wouldn't really be a part of. It was a brand name, and we started making these really interesting designs, and using all the waste made them look really different. So we went to a trade show, and where a lot of people were like, oh, this is a really crappy show, we left with like a $12,000 order from this Japanese company that was like, this is really cool. And we were like, okay, maybe we're onto something. So flash forward a couple of months, she started feeling overwhelmed with her full-time job, and she left the project, and I rebranded it as my own name, Daniel Silverstein. But I had a brand manager and coach who I've been working with for a really long time who was like, you need to get on social media. And now, this is something that I want to correct for anyone over the age of 40 in this room. I was not born with a cell phone in my hand. People seem to think that millennials really understand technology. We're creating it for each other. And so Instagram happened after I created my brand. I did not know what I was doing. Instagram wasn't really a big thing in 2013 when I was on Fashion Star, so I came back from that reality TV experience and people are like, oh, you're set up. And I was like, I am screwed. I have no idea what I'm doing. But early adopters already had their Instagram handles. So I couldn't get my name, I couldn't get Daniel Silverstein on Instagram, and I wanted to tell people that my product was a little bit different, so I put zero waste in front of my name. And after 3 more years of running my business into the ground, I still was managing this Instagram account, and I got a scholarship to go to a business planning program that was a collaboration between FIT and the New York State Economic Development Foundation Fund. And in this workshop, they had a branding expert who came through, and there were 20 designers with me. And he went through every single one of our websites and did sort of a branding audit. And he said to this girl, you know, oh, I like your photography, I like your whatever, I think this is your signature style. Went around the room, I'm like, oh my God, please don't get to me. I do my own website, I take my own pictures on a cell phone, like this is not gonna be good. He said, where's Zero Waste Daniel? And I was like, hi. And he said, you have the only brand in here that I remembered because you're a mission-driven brand. And I was like, okay, that's interesting, because I feel like I'm doing the crappiest job of everyone, and I have the only memorable thing, which I think is maybe how I ended up here today. And basically he said, you know, I love what you're doing, I love what you stand for, I love your mission, but I hate your name. And I was like, excuse you. And I didn't pick it. And he said, your Instagram is Zero Waste Daniel. When I go to that, it tells me so much about you before I ever meet you. It's so descriptive. It says so much more than I'm a Jewish guy. So he encouraged me to change everything I did to Zero Waste Daniel. And he said, now you can sell shirts if you want, you can sell dresses if you want, but you could be selling hats, socks, underwear, gloves, food. It doesn't matter. It's obvious what you do. And so that brand became an umbrella. And I think if you look at Bethany Frankel and Skinny Girl as an example, she branded herself. That's how she lives her life. She gets off on being thin. So all of her products center around her brand. So I wanted all of my products to center around the way I live my life, which is zero waste. Yay. This is fun.
I think that's a perfect note to end it on. I know there's a couple more questions out there. Daniel, will you be around a little bit
around,
at least? Okay,
yes.
good. So if you have questions that you didn't have time to ask him, feel free to follow up with him directly. Let's do the raffle.
I just want to say, like, even if you don't want this thing, it's a great gift. And all of the money from it is going to the CRRA's Scholarship Foundation. So if you enjoyed this presentation, you really should buy a raffle ticket. And thank you so much.
It's probably too late now. Thank you. Well, I think it may be too late to buy any more raffle tickets because we're going to do the raffle now, and Shauna's going to pull it. It's never too late to donate to the young professionals. Yes, that's absolutely true. Sure.
Timony Hood.
Timony! Hey! Let's get your picture with Daniel and the textile. Do we have a camera? There we go. Isn't that lovely? Yay.
Here.
Right here.
Yes.
Great.
So close. How about Daniel? How about Zero Waste Daniel? One more round. Oh my God. Thank you, Shauna, for bringing us Daniel, Zero Waste Daniel. Okay, I'm not going to make you waste your voice, so I'm just going to talk for the both of us. And I would just like to take this opportunity to say that, Laura, you have been the most wonderful partner to put on this conference with. No, Peter, you're the best. There you have it. There you have it. I'm the best. Walked right into that one. And it's now time, just like last year, where we relinquish the stage. Our work is done, and it's time to talk about 2019. Our program chairs for 2019 are the wonderful and talented and very pregnant Colleen Foster, who has left the conference. She's home by now. Show's all planned. No, she's not delivering. And the wonderful, wonderful Manuel Medrano.
Thank you very much. Well, just in case you guys didn't know, Colleen could not get on an airplane because she's pregnant. I don't know if you guys knew she's pregnant, right? Did you guys know that? You know, well, one thing I learned from being in this organization is that we always adapt. We always look to the future. And folks, it's time to look to 2019, beautiful Palm Springs area in Rancho Mirage, everybody. Yeah. Now, I got to be honest with you, it's going to be hot. But there's AC, greenhouse gas causing and climate change causing AC. But don't worry, it runs on wind power. So don't feel too guilty to be in your room nice and cool. I have up here a legend. If you guys didn't know either, I'm sure you know Rick Anthony from Southern California, from the San Diego area. This is going to be, next year will be his 20th year on the board of CRRA. So it's going to be a party. And he has a few words to tell us about Green Cleanup, World Cleanup Day.
Well, thanks. That'll be the second 20-year term, but it's okay. There was time when I didn't win the election a couple times. It's a membership organization. I want to say that anybody, all you Leighton drama, music chorus guys who saw last night and want to get involved, it's an open process. And so if you want to be involved in the NICRA players for next year's event, it's going to be a very cool event. And I want to say something. Bring your bathing suits, and because we won't go out at night in the daytime. It'll be too hot. We'll lock you in the rooms. But at night, it'll be glorious. I want to pitch one more thing. This is really important to me. Captain Moore and I went to Estonia in January, where we met 300 people from all over the world who are going to their goal is to clean up the world. And on September 15th, they're organizing a World Cleanup Day. Now, I was skeptical, but the guy from Albania actually mobilized 40% of the country to clean up their coastal line. The lady from Slovenia had another 15% of her country doing it. They looked at us, and it was Charlie and I were the only ones from the North America, South America, said, can you do it? Well, yeah, we have Coastal Cleanup Day and Ocean Conservancy, and it's all tied at the same time. So what I'm saying to you, all you cities and all your nonprofits out there, September 15th, it's called Let's Do It. It's Clean Up the World Day. Go to the website, register, have a program, let people know. Let's get, 5% of the world is what we're out doing. Thank you very much.
So everybody, safe travels back home, and we'll see you next year at Rancho Mirage. Thank you.